DLC, DLC, DLC. Yes, I did specifically turn on my microphone and then walk away and then come back again. I've been looking forward to this for it's got to be 5 years. Got to be 5 years. And thank you to Woob and the people at Factorio for sending me beta access. It's really, really nice. I feel like I'm part of the club. It's really nice. So the date is 3rd of October. I've got 2 weeks or so-ish before I will be able to release this video and you'll be watching it. And I really just want to get into it, to be completely honest. There's a few things I want to just say beforehand. Number one, spoilers. I don't think there's any way for me to play this game without spoilers. So if you're watching, I'm going to spoil it. If you don't want me to spoil it, don't watch. Number two, what I know. What I know is very little. I've had some flavour, I've heard some things, I've read some stuff, but I don't really know anything about what I'm going to encounter on this. I'm seeing stuff on the screen which is new and interesting and exciting, but I don't really know the ins and the outs of it. And thirdly, mods. We don't have any mods. And to be honest, I'm not really too fussed about the mods other than the time-lapse. I'm annoyed that I don't have the time-lapse because it would have been nice on day one. Media blackout ends and I drop a time-lapse of this thing. That would have been really, really cool. But that's not going to happen. So we've got to go really old school with this. We've just got video clips. We've just got to get on with it. And I'm really excited. So let's just do it. Let's get into it. Now, I'm not going to change anything of these settings. We're just going to do free play. Okay, that's a big spaceship. I'm not going to change any of this stuff. Interesting, interesting. I'm just going to give myself some more starting area just because, you know, I don't really know what I'm doing. There we go. Go! Welcome to Factorio Space Age Free Play. Your task is to dispatch an interstellar space platform. You will need to research advanced... Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Oh, okay. My controller support doesn't work. Of course it doesn't, because we're not in Steam. Alright, I'm going to have to play around with that. What have we got on the map? Right, so that's kind of what I was expecting. So I'm kind of expecting that for some period of time, we're going to be probably just in a vanilla experience. And we're going to need to build a vanilla base, and then that vanilla base is going to lead to other things. So that's what I'm assuming is going to happen. Now, first steps, as always with these things, is to bash the ground and get a whole lot of ore and get some kind of temporary, well, not temporary, perpetual power. I want some kind of power so I've got some mines. I don't have to hit the ground with my fist. So, let's just crack on with it. Right, so we are about 10 hours in. Good progress is being made on the factory, but there's some things that we need to talk about, and probably more things than you might expect. So, first up, general strategy. I'm not building anything big here to start with. I'm just going to build something that gets me to space. You know, you want me to get to space, I want me to get to space. We've all seen a vanilla factory. That's the moment that we want to get to. Let's not fanny around with it. So I'm building a base here. It's kind of it's a more elaborate starter factory. It's a starter factory in essence because I'm not going to be building another starter factory. But it's designed to get me to space. And you know, in general strategy terms, that is the marked difference between this and the vanilla experience that we've had up to this point. Because the starter factory up to now has been, for me anyway, has been to just get enough stuff so I can build the main factory. But now I see the starter factory as it needs to now get us to a point where we can launch to space. Because there are things in space that we need to unlock in order to build this factory properly. And there's no point spending any time building a final factory if we don't have access to those units. I mean, that's the first thing. The second thing is that I don't know what those things are, so I can't plan for it. There is a second aspect to that, because one of the things that I do know that we unlock on another planet is cliff explosives, and I have, for one reason or another, built myself where I'm going to come right up against this cliff. Now, over the last kind of year or so, I've had maybe 5 or 6 people pop up in the comments of some of my videos and kind of point out, you know, oh, you know, when the DLC comes out, you're not going to like cliff explosives because they're on another planet. And I was always just like, yeah, we'll figure it out. And with this cliff here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. I'm going to build around the cliff, and I'm going to display to you what it means when I'm confronted with cliffs. Now, what it means is that the factory is not going to be elegantly placed. It's not going to be perfect in the way that I like it to be. And that's going to make me unhappy. But this is in my mind just a starter factory. And I want to show you what it looks like, because I'm pretty sure that it will be as unsatisfactory to me as it is to you. So, cliffs, we're going to build around it and you're going to see. In other aspects, obviously, we don't have any mods. And one of the things that I like to do with the time-lapse in, specifically, is build paths. But we don't have the time-lapse mod, so I don't see any purpose in doing any paths. Now that has ramifications on the structure of the factory, because now I'm just building factory. I don't have to worry about any of that path building stuff. That's good time. That's time that I'm saving. It's really, really useful. And also, you know, ordinarily I would build, or at least try and build, in some kind of perfect manner. And the reason why I'm able to do that is because I've got a mod. It's called Blue Build, and what it allows you to do, it gives you kind of access to blueprints much earlier than you would otherwise have with robots. And you can use a blueprint, you put it down, and the mod will automatically construct that blueprint at the same pace as if you were building it yourself. So, and it will only build within your range as well. So as you plonk the blueprint down, you can maneuver around that blueprint and slowly construct it. And all it really does is it gives me the ability to move blocks, because I build all of this stuff from scratch. I find out where I want it to go, and then I use this kind of blueprint tool to move it somewhere else. So everything I build from scratch, but now that I don't have that mod, I now can no longer build in a perfect manner. And this is I'm going to point out to you where that is, because, you know, it's going to annoy me. Only insofar as that I don't have the mod to fix it. You know, if I want to build perfectly, but if I'm not given the tools to be able to, then I have to suffer the consequences of that as well. And just one area, because this is one area that annoys me, and it's gonna maybe annoy you too. I don't know. I've got two tiles here, and I've got 3 tiles on this side. I don't like that. If I had access to that blueprint, I'd just move it over one. But we don't. So I am embracing fully the non-perfection. You know, this is just designed to get me to space. At some point in time, I'm probably going to be pulling it down. So it's just got to get me there. Now, from here, it's just a case of continue building. You know, I want to get all of this stuff down. I want a good shopping mall. I need oils and plastics. I need some science. And there's another thing. We don't have access to my mod, which erases ore patches. I'll accept that I did not position the factory in the optimal place. I've got this patch of iron, which is going to be in the way soon as well. This is only half of the factory, by the way. I'm going to build the same again on the top. Whilst we're here, so in terms of the factory, this is a kind of a go-to mathematical ratio layout that I've done many times before. So I'm going to be producing 180 copper, 180 iron. I'm going to be potentially, because the way that I see it, I'm seeing that the valuable materials at this point are steel and blue chips. So I'm going to I've given the factory the potential to convert all of the iron, all of that 180 iron into steel. So that's what we've got here. We've got iron, copper, steel, then we've got stone, then we've got green chips, then we've got red chips, then we've got blue chips, and then we've got my shopping mall. And this is all of this up to this point, this up to blue chips is going to be copied on the top. I have done all the conveyor belts. This is kind of the size that it needs to be. That I've done that's just so that when I put some mines on here, I can route the conveyor belts around it and give myself the space to build it when I want to get there. I'm pretty sure I'd want to do this with robots. I definitely at least want to have all of the inserters and the conveyor belts and the assembly machines automated. I don't want to have to handcraft all of this stuff, because that's a bit of a time sink. So yeah, for future progress, we're just going to crack on building. This is a vanilla base. We know what we're looking at. So let's get to the interesting part. Okie dokie, we are getting stuck into plastics and oils much sooner than I would otherwise be doing. Now this is all to do with the time lapse, because normally the camera would be over here somewhere for my shopping mall, and I would want to finish that part before I started building on the next section. So ordinarily my build style is confined by what I'm capturing at any one moment in time. But now I started to build this, so this is engines and then low density structure, 2 blocks of the same low density structure. It's a bit bigger than what I probably need, but I'm kind of thinking, once again, what are the important materials? Low density structure is almost certainly going to be one of those things. So if I build slightly more assembly machines, then I can fill it with productivity modules and get more out of it. But I started to build and I was like, what am I doing? This is where I would normally go. I don't need low density structure for a long time. And now that I've got this block in place and I've found, and that's his home, I can start building oils because that's just going to go next to it. So I feel like I'm making some really good progress. Now, the cliff, I've kind of just set aside a big space in the bus. It didn't work out as terrible as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to start interfering with some machines, but I think, you know, leaving myself a big gap in the middle here, that's not terrible. It gives me kind of an opportunity for future expansion. This is a huge gap, by the way, for space. You know, this is all of the materials that I already have. The idea of me filling this gap is probably not going to happen, but it's nice to have it. So, yeah, I thought this was going to be a lot more painful. Now, in the time that I spend, you know, because at this moment in time, I need pipes. This factory isn't really making all that many pipes. In the time when I have got to spare, I like to peruse the technology tree, particularly when I don't really know what's coming. So let's go through some spoilers. Let's do it right now. Let's scroll right to the bottom because this is where I like to go. And then the first thing that kind of popped out at me was, where are you? Here you are. Mech armor. Mech armor. That would be really nice. Cool stuff. What's this? Rail Sport Foundations. Oh, we know that what it is. Another thing that I found, Foundry. This is the kind of technology that I think is going to lead my way in the future, because this is like molten iron, molten copper. This is where the main factory exists, or at least a big part of it exists. So this is exciting to me. Lots of molten iron gear wheels from molten iron. We have a whole I got excited when I found this bit. Now, one of the sections I was vaguely aware of was, I think it's quality. Ooh, if I can type. Here we go. Right, so quality. We've got a module here which unlocks the rare quality. Then we've got another one which is way in the future, some point where we've already visited a few planets, and we unlock the epic quality. And then right at the end, we unlock legendary quality. Now, this to me is Factorio next new game plus. That's the term I was looking for. You know, this is like, we get to the end, where do we go? What we do is we start making everything out of legendary quality machines, because, you know, in order to make enough legendary quality machines, in order to build a factory, we need another factory to be running for a significant period of time. And I'm also, that was another thing that I found in here. We've got a recycling option, so you can recycle something and lose 75% of the stuff that we put in. So in my mind, I'm thinking that in order to get these legendary quality things, we need to set up a separate factory process which continually, let's say assembly machines, which continually makes the highest tier assembly machine, and then if it isn't of the quality that we're looking for, it junks it, and we just continually throw resources at this process until we get enough of those machines to be able to do the job that we want. And obviously, we don't even get access to that legendary quality one until the very, very end. So we can't even start producing it until that point. And that's before I even think about what is it that a legendary quality thing gives us. Is it crafting speed? Because I feel like crafting speed is not enough. You know, if we got an assembly machine with a crafting speed of 10, say, you know, that's going to start causing problems with inserters and other things and the like. You know, and it might be useful for things like the slow process items, like low density structure and such. And there might be other items that we don't know about at this point, which are slow processed items, and we might need those higher quality, higher speed crafting machines. But I just feel like that's not enough. I feel like, you know, if I can just build 100 assembly machines or 10 legendary quality ones, I would just build the 100 assembly machines, because, you know, that's cheaper in my mind. So I feel like it's got to offer up something in addition. And this idea of throw a whole lot of resources at this to create thousands of assembly machines of the correct quality just feels like that's end game. That's nothing that we need to be talking about at this point in time. However, in saying all of that, what about this mech armor? Because, you know, in that telling of series of events, we're trying to make thousands of assembly machines or chemical plants or whatever. But, you know, we would only ever need one of these things. You know, how cool would it be to have a legendary quality mech armor? How cool would that be? And what benefits does it give us? I mean, it's already, you know, it's going to be a higher tier than the other armors, obviously, and it's going to give us slightly more stuff. Would it give us more equipment grid sizes? Would it give us more resistances? More inventory bonus? What does it give us? And because we would only need one of them, you know, it kind of it pushes me, and it kind of feels like it's an achievable goal to make. Maybe not a legendary quality one. Maybe I'm pushing that a little bit much. And maybe, you know, maybe not a mech armor, because that's a long, long way away. Maybe we try it with some of the earlier power armors and see what happens. Because there's a chance that, you know, one, this might not even be in the game. You know, they might have locked the qualities to certain items, and that items might not be the power armor. I mean, I feel like that would be a huge lose, because that's just a really, really cool thing, and it would push people like me to go and try and get one. So I feel like we're going to try anyway, because in my mind it feels like if there is such a thing as a legendary set of mech armor, then within about 10 minutes of this game going on general release, there will be a mod which gives you one from minute zero. You'll get one as you land your crash rocket. It'll be in the crash rocket as you salvage it. So I feel like I want to at least try. I want to see what happens, because that would be cool. So we're going to try. We're going to once we get there, we're going to set off a little. We're going to build a little process which continually builds a set of armor, whichever one is where I am at that moment in time. And if it isn't of the right quality, then we're going to scrap and scrap and scrap, and we're going to see what we get. And maybe we don't scrap. Maybe we put all of those armors in a box and we count them at the end and we work out what the probability is. And maybe we try different setups with different modules. And I know the beacons become more important, so maybe we try. Anyway, that's how I'm seeing this quality. I'm going to try it out with singular items just to begin with, and then we'll see about other things later on in life when we figured out more. But for the time being, I've just got more stuff to build. Yeah, more stuff to build, more science to unlock. We've got red, green, and black military science at the moment, so I can upgrade my weapons. Not that that's really mattering. I actually feel like either the game has been made much, much easier, or they've sent the press, us doing this beta release, a very, very, you know, the biters are non-existent. They've had one exploratory attack in 18 hours of gameplay. And they haven't even wandered close to my base other than that. So, anyway, I've kind of prepared myself for a whole lot of biters to attack me. I've got my ammo, my perimeter wall, and I'm just ready for it, and they're not. So, I'm carrying on with the game plan. I'm researching the weapon speed. Let's crack on with some oils. Right then, so we've got access to a few more of the later technologies, and that has brought into vision some of the differences between the Factorio that we were probably used to and the Factorio that we're now going to be playing. So let's go through a few of those differences. The first one that I want to have a chat about is pipes, because the pipe system is fundamentally very different from what we had before. The new system is that if a pipe is longer than something like 250 tiles, then it will have a flow rate of 0. It will just grind to a halt, nothing will happen. If we have a tile, if that pipe length is less than 250 tiles, then we will get infinite flow rate. So whatever fluids we pump into that pipe, we will get instant access to it wherever. So it's kind of this binary on off. And let me just show you what it looks like, because we've got a pump here. This is for sulfuric acid. Let's just remove the pump. It suddenly starts flashing red at us. So it's very, very obvious. It tells us very, very obviously, visibly, that there is a problem. That's good. I like that. So let's put that pump back in. Now, the fundamental difference that this means... Oh, where are you? There you are. Is that we now have to define direction of flow. We can't just rely on the pipes to, if on the old system I didn't have very many pumps. I always found this a pain to put pumps in a big bus and then try and power it. Always just looked ugly. I didn't like it. So the old system that I used to have, I didn't used to use pumps. I used to just rely on the natural flow of the pipes themselves. But with this new system, we now have to almost define a direction of flow. Now, we do and we don't. Okay, let me go through it bit by bit. So this pipe here, this is coming from the oil, which is over to the left. This is coming left to right. That's its flow. We have a pump, and I think the 250 tiles starts at this point. So we can go away from this point in any direction for 250 tiles before it's going to start throwing up an error at us. So we can throw a pipe going vertically, and that vertical pipe can go for 250 tiles. This pipe going downwards can go for 250 tiles, and this one going right can go for 250 tiles. That's my understanding of the system. That's how it's calculating things. All right, post-edit Bigfoot here. I mean, thinking about it, is it post-edit? I'm editing the video. It's the version of me who's going to correct the things I was talking about while I was talking on the fly. Or at least I'm not going to correct them, I'm going to confirm them, because in this case, with pipes, I was right. And it's actually stranger than I thought it was. So I've got a little bit of an experiment here. We've got several different pipes. Let me get into my map view. So the bottom two pipes here, these are both going to the same place. Oh, it's doing all sorts of funky things. These are all going to the same place, and these are fine. Both of these pipes are fine. I've also got a third pipe. This pipe goes here and then goes up, because I was thinking it might be the distance between, like the physical distance, not necessarily in pipe length. It might just be, but no, that seems to be about 250 tiles. And then I was getting some weird things. Like I was trying to get a pipe in and I was trying to loop back on myself, and it felt like I could go on forever. So I felt like, all right, what is it actually testing for? So I've run like not a spiral, but just a loop that goes back and forth, back and forth. It goes back and forth 6 times. So it's got to be at least double the length of any of these other pipes. And this one works fine as well, because it's close. It's the proximity to the pump. So we can actually have a pipe length that's infinite length, and as long as it kind of stays within the proximity of the original pump, then it should be fine. So it must be some kind. It must be doing some sort of Pythagoras, where it's adding, it's working out a big triangle. And if you come inside of the triangle, then you get a little bit more length. And if you go outside of the triangle, anyway, just an interesting little experiment. That good to know. It's physical proximity. It's not the length of the pipe. It's the physical proximity between the two pumps. Yeah, good to know. Anyway, back to the video. Now we have this direction of flow for this pipe. This pipe outside of the pump, this can have unidirectional flow. This can flow in 2 directions. So what it means to me is that we have a system. Let's say we have a system like this. Let me just quickly draw something. Oh, what's going on? If we had a system like this, then the input pipe, this would have a unidirectional flow. It would be only flowing left to right. The output pipe, that would also have a unidirectional flow. That would also be flowing left to right. But this bit in the middle, this would have a flow, this would have like the old system, as long as none of these are longer than 250 in length. So, you know, we can kind of separate the system into a method where we can kind of move fluids in different directions, but we have to separate it. It has to be kind of a separate part of the factory. Now, I'm not entirely certain that this will come into play in vanilla. I'm pretty certain this will come into play with mods, but I'm not sure whether this 250 tiles is something that mod developers are going to have access to playing around with. It might be possible that they might change that number in big mod sets and this problem becomes less of an issue. But anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about with pipes. I'm going to leave that there. The next thing I wanted to talk about was furnaces, because this is more of a general strategy for my game style, because up till now I've just been using the coal-fired furnaces, because for one really simple reason, to be honest. It's because when I build these starter factories, I'm just building it to build the big factory. So I only ever build the things that I need in order to build the big factory. And I never wanted to start processing plastics in the starter factory. You know, it was like a red line in my mind. You know, once I start verging into dealing with plastics in my starter factory, I feel like I'm just building a full factory. I'm building two factories. I'm building a small full factory that can do everything up to rocket launches, and then once I've got to rocket launches, I'm building a full second factory. And it just didn't work out in my mind. I didn't like that as a process. So my process was to just build a small starter factory which made a limited amount of ingredients, and then from those ingredients I would build a big factory. But that limited my ability to use electric furnaces, because I wouldn't have plastics in my starter factory, so I wouldn't have electric furnaces. But now that I'm building a starter factory with everything in it, why wouldn't I start using electric furnaces? Well, I had this really nice clear dividing line on this map that separated all of the furnaces from the computer chips. So I could, as I have just done, is demolished all of that, and I'm starting to rebuild it with the electric ones. So from my perspective, from a general strategy sort of kind of way of looking at things, this is quite a big change for me, this DLC, because I'm now getting access to, I can now use electric furnaces. I don't have to rely on the coal. And the thing is, you know, there was a part of me, I did like the steel furnaces, I'll be honest, and I did quite like the aesthetic of the 72 furnaces with the mixing widget right in the middle. I did really, really like the aesthetic of that. And you know, this seems just too simple without the coal in there. I don't, you know, I like the elaborateness of the old ways. But at the end of the day, you know, this is a strategy game at its very core, and I need to make decisions based on that strategy. I had my old strategy that was, this was the limit, this was my red line, I'm not going to electric furnaces. And now that red line has moved. Now, I'm now going to be using electric furnaces in this thing. I didn't really consider this as an implication of this gameplay, you know. If I had thought about this, I wouldn't have laid down so many of the stone furnaces to start with, because I never extracted the full potential out of that system that I laid down. I never routed all the right speed conveyor belts or fed it with enough ore. So future-wise, I feel like this is now going to be a thing. I'm going to build a factory with all of the conveyor belts to be able to deal with, you know, the capacity of the factory that I want. But I'm only going to build like one or two of those stone furnace blocks. I'm going to feed the factory with a very, very small amount of flow just to get it going. And then once I get electric furnaces, I can knock it all down and build it the brute version. It's a big change strategy-wise, just for me anyway. Now, in terms of strategy changes that are probably relevant to you and for other people, like some of the technologies that we would ordinarily have access to at this point, we don't have access to. And one of those key things for me is the fusion reactor that we can put in our armor, because that was almost like a thing that I always aimed at to get research, because the moment I got that, then I had limitless power. I didn't have to worry about my robots running out. They had anyway. So I was always focused on that, you know, and I would always, it was always a point where, you know, I would build up. I wouldn't have any science. And then I would reach a point, and I would have almost all the sciences at once. And so trying to come up with an armor setup which relied on the solar panels and the batteries, I just ignored it because I didn't feel like it was relevant. But now all that high tier stuff is locked on another planet, so we don't have access to a fusion reactor anymore. So I've now got freaking solar panels in my armor. This is the first time I've ever put solar panels in my armor. We also only have the first tier of Roboport. You know, I just ignored this thing. I will always just concentrate on getting the second one, and I just never put these things in my armor. Now, because the second version, we need some other higher technology, some other science from another planet. These are now actually worthwhile. It feels like this subtle change, and now we have to travel to space. This new red line that we need to cross in order to get these higher tier things has made these earlier tier versions actually worthwhile in my mind. Like, it's almost like I feel like the game was meant to be this way. Like, we were meant to have to rely on solar panels for a certain period of time, because that we never had that up to now, or at least I never felt like I had that up to now. I never felt like I had to rely on them. But again, another subtle result of this is that robots are almost not useful. They're almost not useful because we're relying on daylight to power them. So they can only really build stuff during the day. So if I'm building a whole load of blueprints, which is what I've been doing with these damn electric furnaces, then I can only really build it during I've got like two periods. Like during the day, I'll lay down a blueprint, and the robots they'll do a flurry of activity, and then they'll run out of juice, and then they'll stop. And then when I'll turn off the robots, and then until it's another daytime, a whole day has passed, I'll just build conveyor belts in the bus. And then when the sun rises, I lay another blueprint down. This is a whole new experience for me, these robots. They're on the cusp. They're on the cusp of being pointless. Just almost there. Almost so close. I feel like if I got rid of my exoskeleton and filled that with more solar panels, and I maybe got access to the next tier of battery, maybe it starts to push it, and it's just... I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, those are the things that I wanted to talk about. We're still cracking on with more building. I'm going to build this top half. I did have a moment where I was thinking, do I really need this second half of the factory? I mean, the factory's been doing quite well with what I've been feeding it up to this point. Do I really need to set up the factory so that it can really push? I thought about not doing it, and I thought, nah, that's loser talk. I'm going to do it. We need a big factory, and this factory, I have a funny feeling, is going to be a lot more relevant than I originally anticipated when I started building it. I think it's going to last a lot longer. I've actually got a big question about what I do with train tracks, because I've not allotted for them anywhere. That's another decision for another day. Anyway, let's crack on. We've got to get to space. So I think we're ready for the next steps. I think we're ready to launch this rocket. I think. I'm really just guessing at this point. I'm really feeling. For the longest time, I did not know what the recipe was for a rocket part. Like there aren't, as far as I could tell, there's no recipe for it anywhere that I can find. And because a rocket part's not really a tangible thing in vanilla anyway. It's not like a thing we can pick up, put in our inventory, move around. It's kind of tied to the silo. So until I got access to the silo, I couldn't really figure out how to make a rocket part, and it was made even more strange by the fact that I could not find a rocket control unit or a satellite, which, by the way, neither of which are in the game anymore. They've been removed, as far as I can tell at this point. If I search for satellite in the technology tree, I can't find it, and same as the rocket control unit. So the recipe for our new rocket is a blue circuit board, low density structure, and rocket fuel. That's all it is. And I've fed those three things to this rocket silo. It's finished a rocket. It's got to 100%. And then it carried on making parts until I removed the inserters. And that's where it's got to 16%. So this is I think this is the next rocket. I don't know. And, we've got a new kind of system with research whereby not all of the research is gained by putting research packs into a lab. Now some of the research we achieve by doing certain things, and one of those things that I need to do to get access to the next thing is send this thing, which is a space platform starter pack. I need to send one of those to space. That's the kind of... Do I need one space platform starter pack? How many do I need? Do I need an assembly line? I am just feeding in the dark, just completely feeding in the dark. And another thing that I was wondering about, how the game was going to deal with the difference between the transport of stuff on a rocket versus the transport of stuff on a train, because technically speaking, they're kind of similar but opposite. Like on a rocket, we don't care about how big the thing is, generally speaking. We only really care about how heavy it is. Whereas on a train, it's generally the other way around. I mean, we do care about how there are limits. We can't just put infinite mass on a train. But generally speaking, we don't really care about how heavy something is. We only really care about how much space it needs to occupy one of those cargo wagons. So I was wondering how the game was going to deal with that. And if we hover over this rocket part, we get to see at the bottom here, we get a stack size of 5 and a rocket capacity of 10,000. So we can get 10,000 rocket parts on a silo, even though it's got quite a small stack size, which is quite interesting. But I don't know where these rocket parts are. Like, they get constructed in this silo. Like, we've got 16% of the next rocket, so presumably those rocket parts could be in the rocket inventory and not in making a rocket. How do we separate? I've got all sorts of questions. Anyway, I'll figure this out one way or the other. Let's have a chat about all of the things we've been talking about in this episode, because there's a few things I need to clarify. So, when it comes to quality modules and what we get as a result of higher tier quality, etc., it's not a mystery. It's not pot luck. We have access to what we get, and we have access to the probabilities of how likely this thing is to happen. So up here we have Factoriopedia. I'm not sure whether this was here originally or not, but it's now probably going to be something that's quite useful. So this tells us all of the items that are in the game, and if we click on the Mech armor and hover over this inventory size bonus, we can see what we get as a result of the different tiers of things. Now, this blue dot represents normal quality, and then the next one we get extra things for it. And I think we get extra equipment sizes as well. So that's the grid size we get as a result of the higher tier of armor. If we have a look at the assembly machine, the only thing that changes is the base health. That, I suppose that might come into play on other planets. Like, there might be some dangerous planets where we need a building with higher health. That might be better, I don't know. And a higher crafting speed. So it is kind of what I thought it was. I still don't know whether this is relevant to me. It's probably going to be quite useful to a lot of other people, but to me, I'm not sure about it. Anyway, that was what I wanted to clear up on that respect. In terms of the base, I am remembering my vanilla experiences from the very, very, very early days. Like when I picked up the game for the first time, you know, years and years and years ago, all of those memories are coming flooding back. And it really comes down to one thing. Like iron, copper, stone, and coal, I'm good. Like we got enough of those things to make the factory work. Happy days, no worries there. Uranium, we probably have slightly too much uranium. We got it all over the place. I've got a patch. Where is it? Here. And I've got a patch here. I've got a patch here. Uranium seems to be everywhere, but oil, and this is my memory of from vanilla from back in the day. Oil is always a pain. Like I've had to increase my base, I think, 4 times in order to get access to patches of ore. The patches of oil that I want, and then I get access to the oil. I set up the rigs, I pipe it in, I settle in for a little while, I start making something else, a couple of hours goes by, and then I've got no oil left. It just goes like that. It really reminds me, of why I juice up all of the ore and the oil and everything before I start new games nowadays, because it's really annoying for me. Really annoying not to set up something like that. You know, the idea of setting up a whole lot of trains and everything, I haven't done that. I've ended up with some kind of mess. I mean, that you can see the base is kind of lopsided just because I found an oil patch here, I think it was, and I expanded it to get to this oil patch, and I had to expand it again to get another. So it's kind of it's gone off in one direction. I haven't really kind of explored any other directions. That's just where I just followed the oil. Everything's being routed in conveyor belts at the moment, no trains, but the idea of setting up trains with all of these oil and just running dry after a couple of hours, that would drive me more insane, I think. So, I mean, I turned on the computer this morning and I thought, I'm getting to space, and then I realised, no, you know when you kind of leave you're going on a big journey or something, going on holiday somewhere, and you're just about to leave the door, and you go through like a mental checklist, and I was like, you know what, I need to leave this base in a place where it can look after itself for a little while. So I've run around and added a whole load of more turrets. The biters are becoming a lot more significant now. There was almost like a point where they weren't attacking, 20, 25 hours have gone by, and then one moment they just decided, now we're going to attack. And they're attacking everywhere, so I need to defend everywhere. I mean, we have just about got enough ammunition to fill up all of these turrets. You know, the bigger the base, the more ammunition, the more turrets, the more resources. I think this is where I'm going to leave it. I'm happy. It's got some good production. We're going to leave it here, and we are going to launch this rocket, and we're going to see what happens. Still don't really know. But for your perspective, that will be the very beginning of episode 2, because this was kind of the point where I wanted to bring the episode up to. I wanted to get to this point. I wanted to get here as quickly as possible, as quickly as I could. We are here now, so we will deal with that next episode. I hope it's been good. Till next time.